We're cooking it up in here. Look at that. It is wonderful. Oh, this is so pretty. Ooh, looks scrumptious. Hey everybody, I'm Vera Stewart and welcome to the VeryVera Show. You know, fall is in the air and autumn is one of my favorite times to get in the kitchen. You know, the aromas are so wonderful and all of the things that you can make this time of year really make it a fun time to get in the kitchen. So I'm going to share 3 of my favorite autumn recipes with you today. We're going to start with the roasted tomato basil soup. You know, my husband is a soup lover. We make this all the time. He loves it and I think you're going to love it too. And then a tomato vinaigrette salad dressing. This is actually a staple in my kitchen all the time. I have it in the refrigerator. It's my mother-in-law's recipe. We're going to do a really pretty salad to go with that. And then finally, who wants a plain old ham sandwich when you can have a sophisticated ham sandwich? This was a favorite in our cafe. It uses Granny Smith apples and Swiss cheese, and you toast it, it's served warm. Are you hungry yet? Okay, so in Vera's Corner today, we're gonna learn a few things about preserving fresh basil. That'll be helpful with the soup. So speaking of the soup, we've got a few things to do. Let's get in the kitchen. All right, I am so ready to get started on this roasted tomato basil soup, and honestly, it's one of the most beautiful pictures in our cookbook. It just sings of all of the special ingredients that go in this, and the kitchen just smells so good right now. That's the other thing about fall is all the aromas. All right, so I had a little bit I had to do in advance. So I started by preheating my oven to 325 degrees so I could put my tomatoes in there. So I use Roma tomatoes in this recipe. People say all the time, you just grow all these wonderful tomatoes in the South. Why aren't you using the ones that you're growing in your yard? Well, a Roma tomato has enough texture to it that it's not going to completely fall apart when you put it into the soup. And I really like my tomato soup to be a little chunky, so it's just perfect. So I've cut those in half and then I just tossed them with olive oil and garlic and salt and pepper and put them on to a cookie sheet that was covered in parchment paper face down. And you know, there was a little bit of that left in the bowl, so I poured it all over the top just to get as much of that flavor as possible. And then that's gonna cook for about 25 minutes. So while that's going on, I got my butter, 2 tablespoons of butter in my Lodge Dutch oven. Got that melted, added in the onions, and you're thinking, that is a lot of onions, Vera. But again, it's just a very flavorful soup. These are gonna cook down, they're gonna be just great. So this is actually where I am, you know, right now with that. But in the meantime, let me talk you through the tomatoes that came out of the oven. All right, once they're done, after the 25 minutes, I pulled those out, put them on a cooling rack, and the recipe in the book says to let them cool and then you'll pull the skin right off. Well, you know what? You can do it real quick with a pair of tongs. So if you don't want to wait for those few minutes, you can go ahead and pull that skin right off. Then that's going to go into a food processor just to get nice and pureed. But we add canned tomatoes to this recipe as well, just to give a little bit of variety in the color and the flavor. So the canned tomatoes and fresh basil I also pureed in the food processor. So I've got a nice combination of things. All right, so my onions are translucent. They've been cooking for several minutes. Now I'm gonna add in my flour. Okay, so what is butter and flour mixed together? It's a beginning of a roux. So you're thinking, okay, Vera is doing this with onions in the pot. Well, guess what? It works like that. Very easy to do, and then you've got that step done. So I've got that. Now I'm gonna add in my garlic salt and sugar. Okay, so let me give you a little secret about sugar. I love to use sugar when I'm doing anything with tomatoes. It brings out the flavor of that tomato. It kind of cuts the acidity of the tomato. I do it when I make spaghetti. I honestly do it with squash. I just love a little bit of sugar when I'm using something with tomato. All right, so now I'm gonna add in my milk to that, and it's gonna start getting thick. This is where the roux part really kind of comes together. So add this in kind of slow so it thickens as you go. And this makes quite a bit, and you know, so many times you hear me say, as long as you're doing it, make a bunch, because you can freeze it, or you can give it to your neighbor, or your children in my case. I know I've got several that are gonna want some of this, because it's their favorite as well. All right, so you see that mixture is getting nice and thick. Now look at the difference in these tomatoes. So you've got the canned tomatoes that are a little bit redder with the basil, and then the Roma tomatoes that we roasted. Oh gosh. And you know, this is so reminiscent. When I was a kid and I would ride the train to Atlanta to see my grandmother, she always made grilled cheese sandwiches, and she opened up that cream of tomato soup from Campbell's. So this is a creamy based soup, but just look how beautiful that is. All right, so what makes this recipe great is the chicken stock that goes into it. And this is the secret ingredient today. This is Justin's chicken bone broth. And he is out of Wilmington, Georgia, and that is right, Wilmington Island, and that's right outside of Savannah. And this is the best flavor. It is so flavorful. You can use it in other dishes as well. It adds a lot of things to a lot of dishes. So we're going to let this simmer. When we come back from the break, we're going to get started on the tomato vinaigrette dressing, and this is going to be having this kitchen smelling great. So come back with us in just a few minutes. Welcome back, everybody. If you're just joining me, I'm doing some of my favorite fall recipes. I just love it when I can wear my blue jean jacket and get in the kitchen. It's just a great day at VeryVera, which is what we used to say every day when we answered the phone. So this is a delicious salad dressing. This was my mother-in-law's recipe. She kept it in the refrigerator all the time. It's a tomato vinaigrette, but because she used it with fresh grapefruit sections, I found myself calling it the grapefruit salad dressing. So very easy to make, but there's an ingredient that I want to point out. The first ingredient that you use to make this in the blender is Heinz chili sauce. And you may not be familiar with that, and if you're not, it's going to be your new favorite thing, because I make this as a topping for meatloaf. I put it in the salad dressing. In fact, I make cocktail sauce with it. There's so many different things that you can do with it. So that's the first ingredient. Then oil. And then we've got apple cider vinegar. Now sugar. And remember what I said earlier about sugar and tomatoes. It's just the perfect thing to get some of that acidity out of the tomatoes. Salt, pepper, paprika. This is where it gets really colorful. And then grated onions. All right, so we're just gonna puree that quickly. And it's just such a beautiful color, and it has just enough thickness that it's gonna stick to the greens. A lot of times I'll broil a chicken breast and we'll add a little bit of this to the top of it too, or maybe put that chicken breast on a salad. All right, so once you've got it completely done, then now you can just pour it into a cruet, and it's just ready to shake up. You've got a little bit left. Remember that neighbor I said to take something too? This is why you make a little bit extra. So that's gonna be ready to go. All right, so the way I love to serve this salad is on just mixed greens, and just, you know, be sure that when you pick those up that they're nice and fresh. I always look at my expiration date. But the grapefruit that's gonna go on here, I thought, For those of you that are new to the Very Vera show, you may not know that I cut up fruit every single night. Set your watch for my husband. And you know, it's gotten to the point where it can't just be a couple of pieces of fruit. It's got to be an entire fruit platter. So as you can see, I can talk and slice, and in a minute, I'm gonna section this grapefruit really quickly. So this is almost ready to go. So let me go ahead and show you how to do the sections. So once you've got it, you can see where the sections are. And look at that, it just comes straight off. And this makes it so easy to have a citrus salad, whether it's an orange or a grapefruit. And when they're in season, it just really makes for a wonderful salad. Okay, so some of the other things that I'm using on this salad are grilled peaches. And you know, we have a relationship with Titan Farms. And honestly, one of the features of my Sub-Zero and Wolf refrigerator is that it keeps things forever. Honestly, I can put a peach in there and it'll last for about 6 weeks or more in that, because the temperature maintains itself and the circulation in the refrigerator keeps the produce. That's probably the key feature to me, is how long celery keeps and how long other things like that. So if you're in the market for a refrigerator, I certainly suggest looking into that. All right, so what we did for the peaches was we kept the skin on, and I got my Lodge griddle good and hot on top of my stove, sprayed it with a little bit of oil, and then grilled those. And then the avocado, the trick there is just to cut the avocado, take your chef's knife, and just hit real hard on that seed, and that seed is gonna pop right out, so I can slice that. This salad is also gonna have a red onion and feta cheese. So come back with us after the break. We're first of all gonna show you a tip in Vera's Corner on fresh basil, and then we're gonna get started on a sophisticated ham sandwich that I think you'll really like. So see you in a minute. Vera's Corner is sponsored by TaxSlayer. It's your refund, go get it. Fresh basil is one of my favorite herbs. I love the aroma and I love the way it prepares in food. So today I'm going to show you how to preserve that fresh basil when it's in season to use all year. The first method is to freeze blanched basil leaves. Remove the leaves from the stems and blanch them in boiling water for 2 seconds. Immediately transfer them to an ice bath. Dry completely and freeze the leaves on wax paper. Once they're frozen, transfer to a freezer-safe container, separating the layers with wax paper. Use just like you would fresh basil leaves. The second method is freezing chopped basil leaves. Wash and dry the leaves completely. Use a food processor to puree the fresh leaves with olive oil, using 1 tablespoon of olive oil per cup of basil. Freeze the pureed basil in an ice cube tray, then store in a freezer-safe container. Use the frozen basil like you would chopped basil in sauces and other dishes. Finally, you can dry the fresh leaves. Wash and dry the leaves completely. Set your oven to the lowest temperature. Place the basil leaves on parchment-lined baking sheet, then place it on an upper rack of the oven. Bake for 2 to 4 hours until the leaves are crumbly. Use just like you would regular dried basil. Try some of these methods and you'll have fresh basil all year. Welcome back, everybody, and hopefully you're not just joining me, but if you are, we're celebrating fall with soup, salad, and a sandwich, my favorite meal, whether it's lunch or dinner. So we have started here with a praline sauce that's going on our ham sandwich. So my question to you is, what makes a sandwich sophisticated? Is it that you eat it with your pinky up? Or is it that you make a delicious praline sauce to go on it? Well, I like the latter. So I'm going to add dark brown sugar to melted butter, and we're gonna make a homemade praline sauce. This sandwich was a favorite in our cafe. You know, we had different sandwiches, different specials, and we actually kind of tried this sandwich as a fluke, thinking that, you know, the idea of praline and apple and ham and cheese would sound so good to our customers, and we would do it from time to time. Well, they started requesting it all the time. Now I'm adding light Karo syrup to this. And this is just going to cook until all of your sugar is dissolved. So while that's cooking down, I'm going to go ahead and get started on the bread and getting it ready for the sandwich. This is ciabatta bread, and I really like to use it. And we are going to cut it in half. I'm going to try to get two made. But one of the tricks, and let me show you this. If you're not a big bread lover on this, I'm going to trim a little bit off of this piece. So this is the husband's size, and this is the Vera size. And then on this one, I'm going to cut a little bit because I don't need that much bread. But I love this bread. All right, let's see how this is going. Ooh, and it smells so good. And this also keeps. So this can be something you have in the refrigerator. It'll get hard, but you can reheat it in your microwave or just on top of the stove. All right, so what else is going in this sandwich is thinly sliced deli ham. This is actually honey ham. And then we're also going to use a Granny Smith apple. So I want nice slices of this as well, and I think I'll change to my chef's knife for this. All right, so clean apple, I've washed it. So now I'm just going to do some thin slices because the praline sauce is really sweet. But you can use any apple, you know, just whichever apple you like the most. I just prefer a really crisp and a tart apple. So the praline sauce, I'm going to spread this on both sides of my bread. And you can go as heavy as you want to with this. So this is husband's. So I will kind of load him up there. Get it all the way to the edge because you want every bite to have some of it. All right, so let's build his. So on the bottom, I'm going to put several pieces of ham. I'm going to put a couple of slices of the Granny Smith. I'm going to put a slice of Swiss cheese, and then I'll do a little bit of ham on the other side. And this will flip over in the oven. This is going to go into the oven for about 5 minutes, long enough to get the cheese melted. So when we come back from the break, we're going to get all of this together. We're going to have the sandwich and the salad and the soup. We've done a beautiful display. You're going to get to see the dining room in the cottage. So come back with us in just a few minutes. Welcome back, everybody, and obviously we have created quite a tablescape today. We're in the dining room at the cottage. This is where we do a lot of our meetings. Needless to say, they don't always look like this, but we've had such a good time today decorating. The walls in here are full of articles that have been written about this company now for over 30 years, and the children at camp always say, well, how did you get in that magazine, Miss Vera? And I say, I just sent them cakes forever until they finally agreed to do something. So it's been a lot of fun. And today, this meal kind of lends itself to the decor I've chosen to go with this tablescape today. We started with the roasted tomato basil soup. It is so attractive in this cabbage bowl with the little salad plate under it. And we've enhanced it with a little bit of sour cream and some freshly grated Parmesan on the top. That is actually about a cup of soup, but a little bit of that goes a long way because it's nice and hearty. So serve that warm. You can even serve that soup at room temperature. And then the salad, the mixed greens, the avocado. I showed you today how to section a grapefruit. We grilled Titan peaches to go on top. We've got feta cheese, red onion, and then we did a little Parmesan crisp. But one of the things that makes this so delicious is the dressing that I showed you how to make today in the blender, the tomato vinaigrette. It's nice and thick, It's going to be quite a delicious part to this delicious salad. All right, then finally, the sophisticated ham sandwich. You know, you can put that pinky up, or you can just pick it up and figure out how to eat this and be sophisticated. That might be a little difficult, but as I told you, I cut some of the bread out of mine, but it just is such a beautiful presentation. And in catering, we've actually made this in advance and wrapped the pan and then just heated it again like right at the last minute. So if you're having a crowd, keep that in mind too. So the table presentation today really is the star of the show. Hester & Cook has so many wonderful collections, and I love to look at what's new with them and then create my own tablescape to go with it. So the placemat with the bunnies and the little chickens is so attractive, and then I've enhanced it with the mushrooms and the grass, all of that on top. So, like I always say on the Very Vera show, no matter what you do, do it in good taste. I hope that you will enjoy a tablescape like this coming up, and see you again next week.